Also, have you watched K-pop Demon Hunters?
Yes.
Thoughts on it?
I thought that's nice.
Okay.
I felt like there was something else that reminded me of that movie. It
Really?
was Frozen.
I could see that. I could see that. Yes. Like conceal
Like
don't feel.
it's good. I really enjoyed it, and it's a good movie.
Oh
So
man. That's not the first time I've heard that. Everybody said it's basically Frozen over and over again. Let it go. Conceal, don't
yeah,
feel, don't let them know. All right. So, action. That's my
this is
swing.
all audio though, right?
Huh?
This
No, this is
is
video
all
as
audio,
well.
right?
No, this is video as well.
Wait, it's a video
Yeah.
podcast.
Your hearts with a purpose rise, glow like beacons in the skies.
Hello, welcome to the Ignis podcast, where we talk all things young adult and Catholic. My name is Ngọc or Anne. I am your host for this podcast, and we have a very special guest here with us. He is the one that actually started this podcast. It used to be called, I think, Yam. I Am What I Am. It was a very cheesy name, but it was cute. And he started this podcast with his father. And yeah, now I have taken up the reign and making it to what it is from what he started. And now he is back in school reading the Bible every day.
That's
Um,
yeah, that's what we do. Back in school, reading Bible.
and yes, so please introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Vincent Trong. I am a Jesuit in formation, hence the Bible. Um, and I've been in this Jesuit journey for about, I think, 8 years now. So this will be my 8th year as a
8
Jesuit.
years.
But I do want to say though, I have like this podcast, like I might have thought it up, but it wasn't in a vacuum. Well, Anne was there as well, and so she's really making this hers, and so I just did one or two. So okay.
You gave it traction. You gave me the idea, inspired me, and now we're trying to get it to flourish and bring graces and experience and all the
Very good.
stories to people. So
Very
thanks
good.
to you, and you inspired me. True inspiration right there. But also, 8 years?
Yeah, it's
That's
been 8 years.
crazy. Wait,
I
okay.
was young then.
I think we might get into it later, but I got questions to ask you. Um, but okay, so me and Vincent, we go way back, back into like ministry days. We led retreats together. Seed, right? Yeah, we led Seed together.
Mhm.
And I think I knew you before you went on your Jesuit journey. Um, I
Correct.
didn't know if you were already discerning then, but
Mhm.
also I was not surprised when I found out that you joined the Jesuits,
Mhm.
when I did find out. But our time as friends and mentor mentee era back in the retreat days, um, I feel like you've grown, but you haven't changed. Your character and your traits stay the same,
Mhm.
but it's Vincent. It's your staple. So there
Yeah,
were a lot of
yeah.
like moments where I was like, wow, Vincent, pretty dang awesome. And also like even as a
Surprised
young,
a lot.
very no, even you were pretty awkward too. And like sometimes it took a bit for me to understand your humor, but then you go from like you joke and then quickly you turn super professional and spiritual, and I'm like, where did this come from? And I was like, is he being serious right now? And I was like, oh, he is being serious. So then,
Yeah, that
because
has not
later,
changed.
yeah, because later on, we started working together on the same team again.
Mhm.
Before
Mhm.
Ignis came about, we were part of a young
Mhm.
adult ministry, kind of like pilot kind of deal. And Vincent and I were on the same team, and that's when we started working together. So when working with you again at an older age, both of us, I was like, wow, it feels like I'm back in my stomping grounds when I was working with Vincent when I was like probably 17, 16, 18 and all that. I was like,
Yeah.
that's crazy. So, but for
Yeah.
sure we grew personally and spiritually as well. You were in the Jesuits, and I was in grad school, depressed and stressed.
Mm-hmm.
But you know,
We're
but
trading
then
off.
now we're in a different spot in life. I'm a full-time healthcare worker, full-time therapist, and you are
I'm
back
in
in
grad
school.
school.
You're in grad
Stressed and
school.
depressed.
There you are. Okay. All right. So wait, talk me through it. I know Jesuits take 12 years.
Yeah, 12, 11.
12, 11. Okay. So do they go into seminary first, and then
Right.
okay? What's the
So
process?
formation. So we call it formation rather than seminary, because seminary kind of implies that there's kind of one seminary that you do all your formation in, and for
Mm,
us as Jesuits, we kind of move about. We're mobile in terms of our formation.
okay.
Um, so every Jesuit, no matter how old you are, no matter where you come from, no matter if you were a priest or not before entering, goes through a 2-year period called the novitiate.
Okay.
That's before you take any vows, and it's part of it is discernment, a little bit of it. The other part is uh, really understanding what does it take to live as a Jesuit for those 2 years. So we call those what you do in the novitiate experiments. One
Okay.
such experiment, the easiest one, is called community. How do you live in community? How do you live with each other? So that's the novitiate.
Okay.
After novitiate, you go to philosophy. For you get your master's degree in philosophy, and then or if you're a brother, you get a master's degree, and then you finish that, go to work for 3 years, what we call regency, and I taught middle school for 2 odd years, um, and studied Spanish in my third year, and then where I am now is kind of the last leg of formation before priestly ordination is my theology. Uh, so
Oh.
I'm studying
Okay.
theology in Boston College.
Boston College. Let's go. Okay. That's. I feel like that's a lot of steps, but also very important steps,
Hmm.
especially going through this. So, when you take a vow, is it like the vows of celibacy,
Hmm.
something else? There's three, right?
Yeah, poverty, chastity, and obedience.
Oh, dang. Okay. And that,
We take that at the end of our second year in the novitiate. So
okay.
those, for us, for Jesuits, they're not temporary vows. I think a lot of orders take temporary vows. We take
Oh,
them perpetual vows. So we take them once.
oh,
Um,
shoot. Okay.
and
I see.
we quote unquote renew them, um, but it's not really a vow renewal as much as it's kind of a vow reminder. It's like, hey, these are the vows you take, and so it's like every year when we do our retreat, we kind of
Mm,
recollect those vows.
okay. And I believe for all priests in general, it's they only take one vow, or there's like multiple vows to like go up the tier. No.
Right. I'll admit I don't know. I know what I've heard,
Okay.
but I think that's part of my formation in the theology part is what is goes into priesthood.
You got me there, and that's great because you're in your fourth week of school.
Yeah, yeah. We just
Okay.
finished. I think we just finished the third, and so
Okay.
on Monday we'll be going into our fourth week. Yeah, school.
Whew. Okay.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I will start picking your brain once you get into probably year two or something. You should be somewhat
Well,
formed
there's
in that.
there's any brain left to pick.
Is your goal to be a diocesan priest?
I don't know. I think
Okay.
part of Jesuit formation is that that is part of it,
Okay.
and I'm interested to see if that's where God's calling me, or
Hmm.
where my superior or my provincial's calling me.
Yeah.
But it would be nice to go back to teaching. I think that's um,
Okay.
where I'm leaning towards. But who knows?
Okay. So after you're done with like getting your doctorate, PhD,
Masters.
master's, after you get done with your master's in theology, is that where the path splits, or like more of like where do you feel called into like living out your vocation, which is either through working, through like you said you want to get back into teaching, or through like diocesan priests? Is that where it kind of branches
Uh-huh.
off? Okay.
Um, it branches off in the sense that in a form you stop being in a formal formation community
Mm.
for a time being, and you
Okay.
start living out your life as a priest. Um,
Okay.
and so that means that you are sent and missioned as a priest. So wherever the need is,
Mm-hmm.
the provincial and our formation director would kind of ask me,
Mm-hmm.
where are you leaning? What do you desire? But also kind of look at our region, see like where are the biggest needs.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay.
so honestly, even after ordination, you're still in formation.
Okay.
Um, and being a priest is part of that formation. What is life going to be like as a priest? Forming myself as a priest, as a Jesuit priest. So
Okay.
formation doesn't stop. So it's a while.
I feel like we're always continuing to get formed, and just
Oh yes,
forming all the time. I think
hmm
we're just constantly getting molded into what God pictures us as perfect. So,
yes.
but even if that means in the broken glass, we get patched up. Did I make a K-pop
hmm
Demon Hunters reference? Yes, I did. So, of course, as y'all have kind of heard what me and Vincent have been talking about, we're on kind of the topic, overall theme of just vocation itself. So, specifically religious vocation. And that's why we have Vincent here, since he is getting his master's in theology. He's been in the Jesuits for about 8 years now. He's gone through it. And he kind of knows the ins and outs, just enough to kind of share his experience with this. Um, so, Vincent, may I ask you, what, how would you define like vocation in a broad sense? Just like vocation itself, how would you define
Mm.
it?
I think vocation generally means some sort of call, in answering some sort of call. I think within our faith, within our Catholic faith, it is answering God's call for something.
Hmm.
Um, and I think that's the most general kind of idea of what vocation is. But
Yeah.
I think for me in my life and in my journey, vocation takes on a more personal meaning in that it's God um, calling us from within into discipleship.
Mm.
It's very much kind of that idea that Jesus is saying, "Come, follow me." That's generally what discernment is. That moment, "Come, follow me."
Okay. And
Or sorry, not discernment, vocation.
vocation. We'll get into the discernment in a
Yeah,
bit. I know that's your favorite topic.
yeah,
um,
yeah.
and kind of course, with vocation, there's vocations in career, relationships, your faith, your service, and going into your
Mhm.
typical marriage vocation and your religious vocation. Are those the only two, or there's also other avenues as well?
I mean, vocation, if we take that definition of God's call into
Mhm.
discipleship, um, like how we answer that call, that's our vocation, right?
I see.
Um,
Okay.
so the question is, how? How do you think God is calling you to be disciples in the world today? It
Mm,
could be through family. It could
okay.
be through, uh, you know, religious life, diocesan life. It could be the job that you're doing. It could be, um, the life that you live. How
Okay.
are you answering that call? What's
All
your
right.
vocation?
So, from what I'm understanding, is vocation is basically what God is calling you, and how to be a disciple. Basically, is how are
Right.
you
Yeah.
living out to be a disciple? Okay, that's not as
Hmm.
scary as I thought.
It's
um,
not.
no,
Not.
and especially like growing up in the Catholic faith, you hear a lot about vocations and the pressures of vocation. Are you going to be a priest? Are you going to be a
Hmm.
sister? Are you going to be a brother? Are you going to be a nun?
Yeah.
Are you going to have a family? We are constantly
Yeah.
getting asked that question, and then that's where a lot of people kind of um, either get scared away or start really getting a little nervous about what is my purpose now, and like all the pressures.
Yeah.
I feel like um, from what I've experienced, I still get those questions here and there, but then I think I found like a nice
Yeah.
blanket answer um, to kind of
Yeah.
navigate that question for those who do ask me. It's like I'm still open to it. However, I think right now, I think my vocation right now is my career in healthcare, helping
Yeah.
those. And I do a prayer every morning before I go into work. I typically say, before I drink my Starbucks coffee, I'll stand at the cross, and then I'll be like, thank you, God, for another unpromised day. Allow me to
Hmm.
be your vessel, and let me um, be the source of joy and love, and allow those who I encounter to experience your love and joy. So, like, bringing that mindset into work, especially in like a hospital setting, it it's a different light than what you get when you're in a
Hmm.
hospital. It typically brings a lot of sadness, depression, a lot of anxiety, worries, because people are trying to get better.
Hmm.
They want to
Hmm.
go home. They don't know if they ever get better. And then
Hmm.
you have somebody with a very bright light come in, or a warm light, and be encouraging and trying to get them. And sometimes I do have to carry the bad news and say, hey, things might not get better, but we need to figure out a new way of how to make this life more quality, bring more quality into it, and still live a full life from our deficits. So yeah, so now that you say that, I was like, okay, so my career can be my vocation, if that is where God is calling me to be a disciple. Um, but yeah, but also still open to marriage life, but
Hmm.
also uh, if a sister wants one, let's go. I'm down. Which order? Have I ever told you
Yeah.
that I did an accidental come and see?
A what?
A what? An accidental come and see?
You did a what?
I did an accidental come and see.
No, but I feel like that's you.
You're correct. You're correct. So I didn't know that typically when I hear the word the convent, I think of like a very brick building, gray, white walls, like just stainless steel furniture,
Uh-huh.
plastic on the furniture, kind of
Uh-huh.
vibes. And I thought it was just a place where
Uh-huh.
nuns go, gather, pray, and that's it. Um, I did not know they live
Uh-huh.
in regular houses. So my friend, who was a pre-novitiate, she goes, I went to go visit
Uh-huh.
her in Ohio, and she's like, oh, you could
Uh-huh.
stay at my place. At this time, I did not know she was living in the convent with the sisters that she was discerning with.
Uh-huh.
So I showed up,
Uh-huh.
and it wasn't my friend who answered the door. It was one of the sisters. And then I'm like, where am I? And then they're like, oh, this is the convent. And
Uh-huh.
I'm like, I'm in a convent. And I was like, God, are you playing games with me right now? So I fully committed, and I joined them for morning prayer. I hung out with the sisters, and like I dove in head first. They're all pretty cool. Love them to death. But yeah, it was a great experience, but it wasn't intentional. But I came out with a lot of like clear answers and just understanding of living within community in religious life. And I was like, oh, this is not bad. So yeah, you're correct. That was me.
Can I ask who, what was the order?
The Marinus sisters. Have you heard of them? The Marinus sisters, or the Marinus family of religious orders. They also have brothers.
No.
Yeah, the Marinus brothers as well. Yes.
Yes.
So that's them. That's who I did a
Shout out
conference
to the
with.
Mariners.
Yes, they're so awesome.
Yeah.
They were so awesome. Now that we have like a better idea of what vocation, just the word vocation means, I think we already kind of touched on some of the different like religious vocations. So priesthood, I know there's the different orders and all that. Jesuits, Dominican, Franciscan,
Mhm. Yeah, those are the big ones.
the big ones, and then there's other
Dominicans,
small ones.
Franciscans, Jesuits. Yes. Specifically in the Vietnamese world, Redemptorists are big, Passionists are big.
Okay.
Yeah, I think those two, especially in the U.S. Those are the big, and Divine Word.
Oh, okay.
Divine Word, they're big too.
Cool.
For the sisters, there is Marinus. There are the handmaidens. I forget their full name. The handmaidens. Some of them. I met some in St. Louis.
Okay.
And there's another order in St. Louis that I forgot. It's Julie's order. I forgot what her order
Okay.
is.
I hung out with them too. I forgot their names, but they're also a very fun crowd.
Also, kind of Carmelites and a lot of different orders with different kind of charisms, which means kind of different foci. And then in terms of males as well, there's the priesthood and also the brotherhood, which
Okay.
is men who are part of the order and do like the formation with everybody and everything, but they choose not to be priests, so they're not ordained.
Okay.
So their focus is on other ministries.
Okay. I was about to ask you a quick dive into that, the difference between brothers versus priests. So of course the brothers are not priests and they choose not to be a priest. What other do they just do other ministries, like whatever is needed within the order, or is it just whatever they feel called to?
Yeah. There's one brother I lived with, and when I was talking to him, and I asked, I was like, why not be a priest? And he said, and this is, I think, pretty, important, that he felt called into religious life, but when he imagined himself in front as the priest, he felt more comfortable with everyone else in the back. So his calling isn't to be, I think the key word is sacramental, to celebrate the sacraments. But the way, the daily life, but also the focus on ministry, the spirituality, called them into the order, into the Jesuits.
Okay.
So his focus is on history. I know another brother whose focus is on communication, and things like that. So they have different kind of focus, and kind of specialties.
All right, Vincent. Enough talk about all this. Let's get into you. going into your story and kind of your journey of becoming a Jesuit, um, when did it start? When was that first seed planted to just your journey with going through that discernment?
Sure. Kind of where we started off, and then that whole process, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, uh, it's funny because this question gets asked a lot, kind of early on, and I remember having a story down, or like kind of that script down for a while, but it's been a while since I've talked about it. Doesn't make it not important. It's just not as important as other things now. But I think there's a couple of places where kind of that calling and that discernment kind of started. I think before I start, I think I should define a little bit about what discernment is. I
Yeah,
talked
of course.
about it a little bit before.
Mm-hmm.
If we talk about vocation as a calling from God, discernment is the kind of how do you know it's God's voice and not my own and not someone else's, not the world's voice or my friend's voice or God forbid my own parents' voice, right? How do I know if it's God's voice?
Yeah.
But even before I can, so we get this idea from of discernment, especially in the nation sense, from St. Ignatius's spiritual exercises, which are kind of, for Jesuits, it's a 40-day retreat, and he divides it into 4 weeks, and each week is a special theme. Discernment doesn't come until, I believe, either the end of the first week or the middle of the second. So there's a process you get before you can even think about figure out what God's voice is, right? Or kind of figure out where everything is. So then how does discernment start? How does my vocation start? My vocation started because one, there was a friend of mine who I was pre-med in college, and then things weren't going right. And so there was a moment when I had to kind of think about, all right, I got to take a pause on this, and it was a whole dramatic thing, and I ended up kind of really stopping. I think there's a tendency in college to just keep on going, right? You want to study, you got to study A, you got to study B, you got to do this, and this to get there. And so you just keep on going. The train's on the track, and you're going.
Yeah.
But the moment when I just had to pause and stop really allowed me to kind of take a sense of, all right, where am I going? And do I actually like going there? And so a friend of mine kind of suggested the Jesuits. And then, so then and there I said, no, that's not it. Don't ask me again. Like there was this kind of initial rejection of it. But what was fun, and I think on some levels God's grace and providence, was that the question never went away. The questions just kept on like running around in my head over and over and over again. And then that's when a lot of the questions kind of came up. What if I wanted, I've always imagined myself as a dad. What if I've always imagined myself as a husband? What if I'm not good enough? What if I had all these questions? Thank goodness there was a mentor, my spiritual director at the time, who answered a lot of my questions. My favorite one that I asked her was about fatherhood. It's like, what if, ever since I was like in high school or in college, I had imagined myself having, family, having kids, and being a good father. and she answered me, um, you know, the qualities of a father are the same qualities as a good priest. And I think that was the moment where I'm like, oh man, now I gotta go, don't I? It's like now there's no more questions left,
No.
and
Oh.
and it was so good, and I'm like, okay. What was also good was that I was studying away from in college away from home, and so I got to kind of allow myself to see what are those inner voices in me. Um, and so when I started to on this journey and like reached out to all the people I needed to reach out to, the priest that was in charge of vocations, writing my spiritual autobiography, um, doing all the interviews, and then finally stepping into the novitiate, those questions still came up. It's like, who am I going to be? What if I'm not good enough? Um, what if, like, I see all these priests and they're holy people, and I definitely know I'm not. I know my weaknesses. I know my sins. I know the darkest corners of myself. I'm not like that. I'm not like those perfect people.
Yeah.
So in the novitiate, we do start in the like month 2 or in November, sorry. In November, we do our spiritual exercise. So we do that retreat that St. Ignatius wrote out for us.
Okay.
That it becomes the core of Ignatian spirituality. And before I even got to the point of discernment, we have a week just focusing on who I am, what are my voices, and then who God is. Who is the God that answers those voices? So before we can even talk about discernment, we have to talk about what is my relationship with God. I think like thinking about pre-med, thinking about medicine, even thinking about this priestly vocation, you jump into, all right, God, what do you got me for me to do? We jump right in there. I think that's a fault because for me, when I do that, it's almost like I'm gonna give God my responsibility, where if I mess up, it's God's fault, right? Or the flip side of that, if I do this and I'm imperfect, that means that was not the right thing for me. And if things start to go wrong, that means that wasn't good. But the first step is always in any relationship or whether even when you're dating, is you gotta get to know the person first before you pop the question, right?
Yeah.
And so that's the same thing with discernment and vocation. Before you can even talk about discernment, you talk about vocation, you have to talk about what legitimately is your relationship with God. That means, what is your relationship with yourself? Because there's two parties to this conversation. It is you and God. Do you know yourself? And on another level, do you let God know you? And so if we take that idea, that kind of Ignatius, and if you ever get the chance, and this is a plug to the 19th annotation, if you ever get a chance to do the 19th annotation, or if you ever get the chance to do the spiritual exercises of St. Ignatius, that first week is so crucial to the rest of the retreat. That first week of just fully encountering this God who loves you, and you who are wholly imperfect, and yet God loves you. That makes discernment possible. Because then when you discern, it's not about what am I going to do with my future? What does God want me to do with my future? It's, what are we going to do with our future? There's kind of a co-creation to whatever happens. And which means that even now, when I struggle with the things that I struggle with, and I do, um, it's not that I chose the wrong decision, but it's that, hey, God, what are we going to do about that? What are we going to do about that? And that the discernment and the decision did not have to be perfect. I don't have to be perfect. I think that's the thing, the pitfall that I normally run into, and I still do. I remember um, early in the novitiate, there was a point where I thought I made the wrong decision. Um, so there, a Jesuit um, enters after I do, was the same, Jesuit, or not the same person um, that kind of suggested for me to enter in the first place. So he enters after he asked me to enter, or he gives me the suggestion. Um, and there was a kind of a dark thought that goes, was that the reason why God called me? Was for that other person,
Mm.
right? Is
Okay.
God done with me?
Okay.
But you see how almost it's that idea of this in any relationship. What do we call that? A person insecure, right?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
When you're dating with someone, and then your partner goes and talks to someone that's like pretty, that's like really handsome, and if your response is, "Oh, she or he's gonna leave me," what is
Yeah.
that? An insecure person.
Y-
But if our discernment and our vocation is based on that relationship in the beginning, what is our reaction then? Oh, they're having a good time, and not
Wow.
just that. Look at them being like overjoyed at meeting this other person. Like it could have been a long time friend, a childhood friend,
Yeah.
and you're not moved by jealousy, but you're moved by pure joy for that person,
Yeah.
right? Um, so I think that's the thing that we and I skip, is that first initial step. What is your relationship with God?
Mm.
And do you think we can have one? And like, if you don't think we can have one, then vocation and discernment is not that's not a question anymore. You're just deciding,
Yeah.
right?
I like
Um,
the way you kind of put that in perspective of like, um, I sometimes when I was like, wow, they have a great relationship with God. Like, how do you know God speaking to you? How do you know like
mhm,
all these things? And like I call it spiritual jealousy. I was like, why?
mhm,
How come I don't have that? And how come I
mhm.
don't feel those? Or like, what are you doing that I'm not doing, kind of thing. And then that's where I become a little jealous, and I was like, does God love me? Yeah, yes, He does, but like, is
Yeah.
somebody else better than me? Like, the way you put
Mhm,
it is like, imagine God flirting with somebody else, and you're like, but what about me?
mhm. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm at a bar and
Yeah.
he's
And like,
flirting with somebody else. Wow. He's answering all these prayers,
exactly.
but not mine. Okay. And I was
Exactly.
like, the way you put that in a picture, I was like, I see. I see. So,
Yeah.
with that kind of being, you mentioned that with some of the pitfalls within just being in um, your religious life and your journey, are there
Mhm.
other, like, just the fears or like just some of the what are some other kind of pitfalls you kind of experience or some of those things like loneliness or like being with friends and family, like are you still able to have those relationships and build, or is it a sacrifice you're going to have to be
Yeah.
able to serve fully
Yeah.
your
Yeah.
vocation? Like, is that something we have to keep in mind for those who are wanting to discern or in that discernment?
Mhm.
Especially
Yeah.
how far you're along with this. I don't know where you're at in your stage, or does it even get more isolated once you get more educated and more like
Yeah.
spiritually
Yeah.
um, I'll say like elevated kind of thing. But yeah, like, are there other pitfalls that you've
Yeah.
experienced?
Yeah. Um, I think I talked a little bit about like kind of sometimes you feel those moments where you think that God has abandoned you, you know. And often those times those are moments of where I feel like my own imperfections are are the source of my vocation, right? Or the downfall of my vocation, but that's not the point.
Okay.
So this kind of sense of pitfalls is, you know, that sense of insecurity in myself. That's one. Um, I think two. I was talking to someone else about this, another Jesuit, but for me, it is very easy to become jealous of other Jesuits, um, because there is a kind of a a culture of diversity in the Jesuits. That everyone is good in very different things. One's an artist, one is a singer, one is a
Okay.
philosopher, one's a theologian, everything under the sun. So sometimes you get caught up in all of that and be like, what am I good at? It's like, what am I good at? Right? What the heck am I doing? I'm in front of a camera doing a podcast. You know? Like, what am I doing? Um, and sometimes you get caught up in this, you know, being comparing with yourself to other people. Um, you know, if you are experiencing this now wherever you're at, you know, it doesn't change, and sometimes you get better at hiding it, but you know, that's my cross to bear, and I know what that weakness of mine, and so I kind of try to move that into, you know, how wonderful is that person that they're able to give that, like, the sense of gratitude. So that other one, so comparison. Um, Kind of more practically, there are some moments that I do feel a sense of distance, both um, geographically. Um, Born and raised in Los Angeles, and I've had to move every couple of years. And so, whether that be you develop friendships in one city for a couple of years and then you move on, or even you leave your family and your parish behind, and then when you come back, you know, things have changed, and you weren't part of that. Um, and that was a big struggle, and something I still struggle now. Um, but I see my, you know, that yes, you could say that that's a sacrifice, um, and that is very true. Um, but then I have to kind of reimagine what I'm seeing. Um, you know, they're always excited to welcome me home, and I get to keep friendships and cherish them when I have them. Um, and so it's more often than not, I lean on an idea of, you know, good goodbyes, like, and then until next time type things. And so those are sacrifices, yes, but um, and it's not that I learned to live with them or I learned to deal with them. Well, you learn new virtues
Okay.
um, in response to them.
Okay.
The
Like,
best one is gratitude.
okay.
The best one is gratitude.
Alright.
Grateful for the gift of their friendship. Grateful for the gift of having a home and a family to come back to,
Yeah.
and a church that supports you.
Okay.
Grateful for the opportunity to experience wild and various stories to bring back home.
Well, thank you
Yeah,
for sharing. Um, just
of course.
and also just giving us the insight of what discernment looks like through your experience,
Yeah.
but also just what being in religious within a religious vocation for yours is, of course, becoming a priest um, or becoming a Jesuit, whichever diocesan priest, or just serving in ministry, whichever your calling is. And you're still in it, and I'm praying um, for God to speak loudly to you, and hopefully it's clear. Sometimes you have to listen very closely
Yeah.
to know. But I've been praying for you since you joined, so just seeing you grow as a priest, I'm like, I know that guy.
Oh, shucks.
For those uh, young adults, or just even anybody, discerning, or even just having a thought of maybe what religious life, or maybe that's their calling, um, what's a good prayer or something for them to kind of ponder and take into reflection, for them to kind of marinate, um,
Yeah.
just to see like if this is truly their calling, or was something they could try to maybe even dip their toes into this vocation, or who to talk to, who to reach out to, maybe resources.
Sure.
Um, what are some of those that you may know of?
So, kind of practical things. I think one is, I think the best kept secret of the Catholic Church is spiritual direction. So if you're in college, oftentimes Newman centers have a spiritual, either spiritual mentors or spiritual direction. But spiritual direction is a great way to, develop that relationship with God, right? Where you have a one-on-one person. It's not confession, and it's not counseling. It's someone to walk with, to help guide you in your relationship with God. And we have to, on some levels, we have to take the extra step because it's a God that we can't see.
Yeah.
And so, what do we do with that? So, spiritual direction, I think, is good. It was a spiritual director that kind of helped me navigate what is vocation and all those questions that I had. So that's one, spiritual direction. Two, I think, is learn how to be authentic. This is not practical in the sense of like I can hold and touch it, but almost a lifestyle. Like we tossed around this word about authenticity a lot, and then almost to the point that we lose its meaning. But there are a lot of times that we start lying to ourselves, or we start telling ourselves things that aren't really true. And if we take time to kind of look and examine at the things that we tell ourselves, that we tell others, sometimes it's not, the best things. For example, I need to be perfect.
Okay.
Or God wants me to be perfect. Or, I do this because I like it, but actually it's because I need the credits for, some degree that I have. I don't really like it. Because the worst thing to do for yourself in your vocation, your conversation with God, is to misrepresent yourself, because you don't even know yourself. And yeah, and so authenticity, building that sense of, do you know who you are, like really know who you are, and then from there, can you ask, do you think God loves me for who I am? If that answer is no, and it can be no, right?
Okay.
Then you're taking the first step to real authenticity.
Mm.
Some days you could say, I don't think, the God that I've learned and the God that people have taught me would not love me.
Mm.
And that's the first step to be really real.
Yeah.
And the first step to really encountering a God that is beyond what you've been learning. And so then you start developing this idea that, all right, who is this God that's trying to get to know me? Once I strip away everything else. And that leads me back to having a good spiritual director that helps you in that journey towards authenticity.
Okay.
Yeah, I think those. Oh, and retreats.
Oh,
If you
okay.
have the means or the people to talk to help you with those means, go on a silent retreat.
Okay.
They will challenge you. They will challenge you.
I will be. I will testify to that. Like, I will second that 100%. They will challenge you and make you think and really go into prayer. So, I really love silent retreats. But thank you so much, Vincent, for joining me on this podcast. Truly special episode today because it's a nice full circle, and always praying for you as you're going through school again.
Here we go.
But I'm excited to hear more about what you learned in your deep dives into the Bibles. And we encourage everybody to maybe discernment into your vocation if you haven't already, or maybe even take a deeper dive and taking that next step. So we'll be praying for everybody's journey. And with that, Vincent, would you like to lead us in closing prayer to close this off with?
Sure. I would love. I'm actually reading prayer. Not my own. It's
Okay.
attributed to Father Pedro Arrupe, Jesuit, one of our superior generals. In the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Amen. Nothing is more practical than finding God, than falling in love in a quite absolute final way. What you are in love with, what seizes your imagination, will affect everything. It will decide what will get you out of bed in the morning, what you do with your evenings, and how you spend your weekends. What you read, whom you know, what breaks your heart, and what amazes you with joy and gratitude. Fall in love, stay in love, and it will decide everything. Amen.
Amen.